He's allowed to take and go away. Okay. That's what Ravashi says. Man layman who told you the sudo itofis if he grabs it, you cannot grab. Okay. It's not being grabbed. Who told you not? It means you could. It's not the exact same words, but it's the meaning. Go away. That's what Ravashi says. Man layman who told you the sudo itofis you cannot grab. So I'm reading the Sefer Hayosh Rabbeinu Tam. The last three lines in Sefer Hayosh. But let's review what he said. He said the Havamin of the Gemara is why Chalipin should work by Isha, because I only learned Kesef. But Chalipin is Kesef. Chalipin has Shove Pruto is Kesef. Not Kesef, he calls it Shvekes. It's Shvekes. Shvekes obviously is like Havamin of the Gemara. The Gemara answers that since there is Chalipin less than Shove Pruto, so even if there is Shava Puta, a woman is not being acquired, why? The En Lechalik Bekinyan. You don't make a split in the Kinyan. Since Kinyan Chalipin exists less than Shava Puta, so even if it is Shava Puta, it doesn't work because En Lechalik Bekinyan. Which means he's basically saying, I understand that Shava Puta is Kesef, less is not, and by Kiddushin we don't make a Chiluk. But elsewhere, Chalipin Shove Pruto can work mitan kesef, and he continues. The Taylor, you should know. Chalipin bichlal kesef. Chalipin is part of kesef. And by the way, the language of the Tosfos in the name of Rabbeinu Tam is different than Rabbeinu Tam in his book, because the language of Tosfos says is like ke'ein kesef dekro, like kesef of the verse. He uses the words bichlal kesef. It's including kesef. It's shvek kesef. Including Kesef. So he says, Teda will prove you the Chalipin Bichlal Kesef. Chalipin is part of Kesef. Why? The Chitnan, it says in the mission, page 26, Chavov Amud Aleph, Nechosim Shesh Lehem Achrayus, assets which has responsibility, like land, Niknim Bekesef V'shtar B'chazoka. You can acquire it with a Kesef V'shtar Chazoka. But doesn't say Chalipin. Look, Tony Chalipin. And we know definitely there's a pasuk that says by Rus that land can be acquired with Chalipin. It's a Gemara Daf Yud Gimel that karkas can be Chalipin.
Which Masechta 26?
It's a possibility. מי מביא את זה בשם?
לא, זה מה לא.
זה סברה שלו, יכול להיות שכן, יכול להיות שלא. Again, what's the raya of the Rabbeinu Tam that Chalipin is Kesef? Because the Mishnah says that Daf Chovov, land, Nechosim, Shesh Lamachayis, as which was not responsibility, which means land. People put their responsibility of business on land. Page Daf Chovov Amud Aleph, page 26a in Kiddushin. It says Nechosim sheyesh lehem achrayus niknim, you can acquire it bekesef ub'shtar b'chazoka. V'lo ketoni Chalipin. It doesn't mention Chalipin, and we know kakas nibur. I mean, how do we know? One is a pasuk, V'sholem Mishnalo, as Rashi quotes by us, by Ruth, that Boaz acquired the field of Almoini by pulling the shoe. Chalipin. That's number one, is a pasuk. Number two, it's a Mishnah. It's a Brais in Afyud Gimel in Kiddushin. When Ravasi died, so they gathered to say almost all words of Torah that he said during his lifetime. They gathered the Shmusim, his words of Torah. And one of the things they said that he said that you can acquire land with lesser Shavaput to Chalipin. So why the Mishnah doesn't say Chalipin part of the list? Must be. I don't need to, because Chalipin is part of Kesef. Chalipin Shavaput is part of Kesef. That's why it doesn't mention Kesef and Chalipin on its own. Part of Kesef. Bichlal Kesef, he says. Yes. So when it says Kesef, Shtar V'Chazoka by land, Chalipin is part of Kesef. Correct. Yes. Why the Bechal Kesef Nisnayu? It's part of Kesef. V'ai da Amrinon is exists included in Kesef. Yes. V'ai da Amrinon, he has a kash and he gives an answer and he says, according to what I'm understanding, it's answered. So that's like a kind of a proof. But he has a kash on this. We found by land Chalipin is part of Kesef. Good. I will show you somewhere else that Chalipin is not part of it. Where? Mishnah in Kiddushin. The Mishnah in Kiddushin says, Evet Knaini. Mishnah Kiddushin where? Page 22, I think. Which page is it? Which page is it, guys? 22. 22b. Chavei base. Evet Knaini nikle bekeser v'shtar v'chazoka. And the Gemara says, Tana b'chalipin. And the Gemara asks, V'tana didan, why our Mishnah didn't mention Chalipin? Milsa de leise metaltelim ktonim, milsa de metaltelim lo ktonim. He only talks about land, not metaltelim. And Chalipin is also existing in metaltelim. And Kesef doesn't exist in metaltelim. Shtar Chazorah doesn't exist in metaltelim. So when he writes things with land, not Chalipin, which exists also in metaltelim. But what do we see from the Gemara? That's at page 22b. So let's see. That we say page 22 of Chavei Samud base. By Evet Knaini, Tanav Bechalipin. Vekamrinon Vetana don't my time below Tonilo. We have a kasha. Why the Mishnah didn't mention Chalipin? And we answer because it's not part of, because Chalipin also exists in Metaltelim, only right Kinyonim, Kesef Shtan Chazoka that exists only in land. What do you mean? What's the kasha? You just said that Chalipin is Shavapur is part of Kesef. So the Tana Didon does have Chalipin, but he's saying Kesef Shtan Chazok, Kesef Chalipin is part of Kesef. Yes, he has a kash on himself. Kash on himself. Kash on himself. Rabbi Yoshua, you have your earplugs? I'm joking. It's the answer. Yeah, we have. Okay, good.
So loud, I can't hear the words.
Okay, good. I'm just joking. I wanted to start the day with a joke. Oh, you laughed. It's good. So he answers. Unbelievable answer. And this is really, I wanted to start the day the shir about. He answers a very important line, mucho importante línea. Beporesh of pruto. He answers which Chalipin we talk about. Lesser of pruto, comma. Chalipin milekayim kol dovo v'lo mitoras kesef. Unbelievable. Here we have a double chidush. Number one, he says Chalipin lesser of pruto is not kesef, but what is it? He defines it milekayim kol davar. Milekayim kol davar, it's a pasuk. By Ruth, to establish all things, to establish lekayim, kiyum, to establish. V'lo mitoras kesef. What is he saying? He's saying a very big thing. But we see double v'hipucha gives us also understanding what does kesef mean. Listen. There is a big machloikas by kesef between the smai and the taz. How do I define kesef? I define kesef like kinyan, lekayim kol dovo, to establish, or a kind as a shovi. Here we see clearly in Rabbeinu Tam that kesef is not lekayim. Kesef is what? It's not kiyum. It's shovi. And Chalipin shovi pruta is kesef, which is shovi. But lesser Shavuot is the Kaim Kodo is a Maisekinyan.
Not a Maisekinyan, it's shy to a Maisekinyan, it's not a Kinyan itself.
Where, what? Chalipin Leshavuto, yes. Chalipin lesser Shavuto is Lekaim Kol Dovo. Is Milekayim Kol Davar, to establish. It's an establishment. It's an act of establishment. It's not money. It's not exchange of money.
But that's not a thing itself. It's not the hefs of the thing. It does a function, but not.
It does a function of Lekaim Kol Dovo. But Kesef, the function is true value.
Okay.
So what do we got? We had a very important thing.
So it's not a thing.
According to Toisves, that he says Chalipin is Kesef. He doesn't say Kesef. He says Doimin lekesef dekro. It's similar to Sefer, means could be is Kiyum and Kesef is Shavius, but it's Doime because it has in it intrinsic money. But they not necessarily need to work the same. But from the Rabbeinu Yosho, Rabbeinu Sefer Yosho, Rabbeinu Tam in his book, we see something very important. We see a big yesoy that when I say Chalipin Shovavus Mitam Kesef means it works in the same way. It doesn't work in Lekaim Kol Dovo and Kesef is value. Both are value or both are Kaim Kol Dovo, but it cannot be both a Kaim Kol Dovo because else he makes a look. The lesser Shovavus by Chalipin is Kaim Kol Dovo. So it must be that Kesef means value and Chalipin Shovavus is value. Chalipin Shovavus is a Kiyum Kaim Kol Dovo is a Maisa Kinyan. Big yesoy. Yes.
The beginning when he says
Yes. Because it's the same name, but even on the two different functions. Yes. Yes, yes. But Toysa said Lamaskono that since Chalipin is from Puto must be Zekin Acher, which means we always knew that Chalipin has a different function. But we thought since it has Shove Puto and it's not Mikre, it's Be'etzem, so you may let's don't even like Kesef the Kro, it's similar to Kesef the Kro. Even though it's different, but it's two sugim. You have two sugim. You have two sugim in the mean of Kesef. There's a mean and sug. In the mean of Kesef, it's doimil like Kesef the Kro, but it's a different sug. The answer is no, it's a different mean. Because since we see Leshav Baruto works by Chalipin, it must be Kinanache, means it's sugache. But according to Rabbeinu Tam and Sefer HaYosher, that Chalipin Shove Pruto is the same mean and the same sug. And Chalipin Shove Pruto, it's a different sug and a different mean. Telegamre. Just has the same name, and L'chaim Bekinyan, that's only by Yishuv is not to cancel out. But by Evet Knaini, it is one. The only problem I have here in Rabbeinu Tam, I have a kasha. What was my kasha? A very simple kasha to myself. His whole kasha was, he has two Gemaras. He has page 26 and page 22. And page 26, by land, he says, it says land you buy with Kesef Shtachazok, it doesn't mention Chalipin. It's because Chalipin is part of Kesef. By Evet Knaini, that we don't have Chalipin, which, and then Mashma, the Gemara says, why we didn't write Chalipin? Mashma, that although written Kesef, Chalipin is not part of it. So the answer is there, it's less of a put, and it's a Kaim, it's a different type of Chalipin. It's a Chalipin Kaim called Dovo. Wait a second. So then we have a problem. Why the Mishnah says Nechosim Shalavachais Nikin? Because I don't know why we don't mention Chalipin less of a puto, which is a Kaim called Dovo. So what do you say? By field, by land only works Chalipin Shove Kesef, but Bichal Kesef Shove Puto, but less of Shove Puto. Although such Chalipin doesn't exist by Kaka. Definitely also by that exists by Kaka. So why if the Kasha comes back? Why the Mishnah didn't mention Chalipin? You're right. Chalipin Shove Puto is Kesef. It's part of that, but you didn't give an answer. The same way by Bet Kanaini, we say Chalipin is not part of Kesef because we're talking about different type of Chalipin. I'm less of Puto of the kind called Dovo, so we still have the kasha comes back to Daf Chavov. Why we didn't mention Chalipin of Lesser Shabbat and kind of Dovo by Kaka, and we see by Ruth it works. Yes. So maybe, but what we know, but the Mekoyer of Chalipin by Kaka's root, and root definitely not only Kesef works. Also, root works by Nal. What do you say? Nal is Shove Pruto. So what about if it's not Shove Pruto, Lekaim Kol Dovo? About Dovo Mesuyom is Mashma, as long as Dovo Mesuyom, we learn, as long as something complete with a Kli, it works. That's what Gemara learns from Ruth, from the Pasuk of Ruth Amaviyah, from the Pasuk of Boyaz. So the Kasha comes back. So you can answer, since part of Chalipin is part of Kesef, we don't have to mention it. Once the Brais said by Evet Knaini wrote it, we say, and we talk about, which means it's not the Chalipin of Kesef. That's why the Braisa wrote it. Also, why the Mishnah didn't write it? Because it's not the Chalipin of Kesef. I think it's Kesef's part. And we don't have to write Chalipin, why you don't write it? Because once I wrote part, I don't have to write all. But the Braisa and Evet Knaini did write Chalipin, even though it's part of Kesef, must be talking about Chalipin less. So I have a question why the Mishnah didn't mention it. Also, because it has to do exists also in the Metal team. That's why we don't write it. What you have to say. Where's the earplugs? Allah, 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 Allah. Rabbi Yoshua, where's the earplugs? Where's the earplugs? It's like I used to love the words of Ronnie Vance. Ronnie Vance, he said, I come here to the yeshiva, it's like a cinema. They give me popcorn, Coca-Cola, and I watch the rabbi speak and act. I said, he's right, but it's wrong. Because if you do that, he's right that some people do that, but he's wrong. It's not the matara, that's not iyun. When you hear the rabbi speaking and you're thinking what he's thinking, which is great, but you're not thinking yourself, it's not iyun, it's just disinformation, like the kids.
Not thinking.
Not thinking. So eat popcorn, maybe helps you to think. I don't know.
But he can't be thinking as fast as you're talking.
What?
He can't be thinking as fast as you're talking.
I know, that's why it's not just, it's good to come to shir and just listen. You have to ask questions, to think about it. You have to write it down to yourself afterwards to argue, agree, disagree, add, subtract. That's the whole point.
Would you mind summarizing the
That I like. That's, you're doing lemaisa, loch lemaisa. I will summarize, yes. The Rabbeinu Tam says like this.
Yeah.
Rabbeinu Tam's big chiddush is, that's his big chiddush. The big invention of Rabbeinu Tam in the Gemara. He fought Rashi, and he came with a new idea. That when the Gemara asks, let Chalipin work by Isha, it's not because we learn in Kinyon Esod that Isha like Rashi. Because Chalipin is kesef. Chalipin Shavuot is kesef. It's Bichlal kesef. Toshas use the language Bnei Ravidam because Kain kesef. He says no, Bichlal kesef. And the maskone is you're right. Because Chalipin Shavapruto is Kein kesef deko. It's like the kesef of the Pasuk. Like exactly, like Muslim is not the same. But in Rabbeinu Tam in his book, he says Shvei kesef or Bichlal kesef. It's part of kesef. It's included in kesef.
But included is also.
What does include mean?
Yeah,
It's separate.
Mean?
It's separate, but it's include. Include is include.
Can't be that it's included.
No, because it's a different language. I say Chalipin and here I say kesef, but it's included in kesef because it's function different. In Rabbeinu Tam in his book is mashma more. There's not functioning different. It's the same, but we also proved it in a second. Once we're going to prove it.
Okay.
We're going to prove it because he says double v'yipuchay. Lekayim and kesef. He says lekayim. There's chalipin of lekayim and chalipin of kesef. So you see that kesef is not lekayim. It must be the same function of kesef. 1 second. So now, so the maskonas hagemara according to Rabbeinu Tam in his book, Sefer HaYoshua, in the book HaYoshua, Sefer HaYoshua, the book of being straight. Sefer HaYoshua, the Rabbeinu Tam, he answers, the Gemara is the answer, that since there is Chalipin less than Shavapruta, which is not Kesef, although Chalipin Shavapruta is Kesef, en lechal bekinyan, you cannot make a split in the kinyan. Why cannot split? The rabbis didn't want to make a chiluki in the kinyan. Why? You do this, you might do that too. Or the rabbis don't make a chiluki because it's shame to a woman. It could be many svaras. And he says the word en lechal bekinyan. En lechal bekinyan.
That's also a sport.
It's a svar, yes. That's Rabbeinu Tam. But that's what he learns. Pshat in the Gemara.
Yeah, because he has to protect himself.
It's a theory. Yes, Kash another theory. He says my theory is better. That's what he wants to say. But he proves it. Teda. He brings. I would show you that by land. The Gemara, the Mishnah says Kesef Shtav Chazok. We didn't mention Chalipin because Chalipin is part of Kesef. So my big chiddush against Rashi, that the Havamina to apply Chalipin to Isha is not because Chalipin exists in Soda and I learned Soda to Isha. No. I'm only learning Kesef from Ephron to Isha. Only Kesef. But why we thought Chalipin is part of that? Because Chalipin is Kesef. Like I prove you today now we see by the Mishnah Daf Chofov that it says land is Kesef Chazor, it doesn't say Chalipin. Because Chalipin is part of it. Why Bevet Knaini, the Bryce says Chalipin, and the Gemara says, why the Mishnah doesn't say Chalipin? The Gemara says, because Chalipin works on metal teams, so the Mishnah don't want to speak about it. What do you mean? Chalipin is part of Kesef, and the Mishnah did speak about it, because it says Kesef Shtav Chazoka. Why the Gemara says Chalipin is not part of the Mishnah? Because they were talking about Chalipin less than Shavaput. And lesser Vuda is the kaim called dovo. It's an act. And Chalipin Shavavuta is kesef. So what's the conclusion? Chalipin Shavavuta stays Halibin the emes kesef. And Chalipin lesser Shavavuta is the kaim called dovo is not kesef. By a woman, we don't make a chiluk in the kinyan, so the whole thing is off. But by land and by Eved, Knaini, Chalipin Shavavuta kesef exists. Chalipin lesser Shavavuta. It's a kinyan the Mishnah doesn't speak about because it's involved with women taltali. Because Chalipin lesser Shavavuta can also acquire land and metaltali. And Mishnah only writes things that only land, which is Kevshtan and Chazok.
Yeah, that is in that conversation.
What?
Land or metalton.
Yes.
Yeah.
Eved is land.
Yeah.
Land, like land.
The woman, the issue is that.
Ukash lekaka. And Eved is land. And Chalipin works with metaltalin. And the Mishnah only writes Keshtar Chazok that's kinyonim of Eved or land. And the Mishnah didn't write metal Chalipin of lesser Shavavuta because Chalipin works also by metalti, but it's not the subject of the Mishnah. The Mishnah only wrote kinyonim that works with land. And Eved is land, he said. That's right. Eved is land. Yes. Good hearing. Yes. No. Acheres לשפחו, שפחו לעבד עברי. עבד עברי לעבריו ועבריו לאחרס. But עבד כנעני is not Ukash. Who says Madame? It just proves that Chalipin mitam kesef stays Halibin emes. Although by Kiddushin we knocked it out because of Chalipin Kinyan, but anywhere else in Shas, Halibin emes, Chalipin of Shavavuta is kesef, and it works part of kesef. Unless Shavavuta, then it works mitam mitzad the pasuk of Ruth lekaim kol dovo. So Ruth is mechadesh less, and Chalim Shavavuta, you don't have to come to root. It's part of Kesef. What do you want to say? Yes. Our Rabbeinu Tam in this book. Our Rabbeinu Tam says, listen, Shavavuta is Kinyan Acher. 1 second, but he says it's a proof that even Shavavuta is Kinyan Acher. Yes. No, both agree Lekaivadov is an inacher. Yes, that's what I understand. Another thing I jumped in Rabbeinu Tam as a summary. Rabbeinu Tam says, why does a Havamir Svora that Chalipin Shavavuta is kesef? Because even though the seller, the buyer is still holding, the buyer that's giving the handkerchief to the seller, although he's holding part of the handkerchief, and the seller is holding the other part, they command the posuk is cut off. Number one. Number two, he says allowed to cut up and keep it for himself. So it means it's money as value as money, because I can keep it. Those are those things he had. So he made his mamash b'chal kesef. He could cut it. Since he has permission to cut it, means it's his. He just made a decision to give it back. Or even most people give it back, but that's their wish. If they want to keep it themselves, so that's what he got. If you give me money, and normally I give it back, but I don't need to give you it back, and I call it myself, it means I got money. That's a svara of the Rabbeinu Tam. Again, he says, since Ravashi says in the talking page 48, that I have the permission to hold back the Chalipin, means when you gave me with the option that I can hold it back for myself. So although I give it back, that's my own free will. So it's like I got money and I had free will to give you it back afterwards, but I still got money. That's why there's a having to say, Chalipin Shavavuta is kesef. This is the chiddush of another chiddush of the Rabbeinu Tam in Sefer HaYosher. What? Yeah, it's all printed here. Here we have the Rashbo, Tshuvas HaRashbo. We have the Ran. 1 second. We have Chaznish B'Kashmuel, Shimon Shkop, Rashbo. 1 second. See what he said? We have Chazonish here. We have Teisas Reed in page Chet. You see Teisas Reed? In page Chet. And then we have the Avnei Miluim that brings the Teisas Reed. It brings there's all Torah on it. Chazon Ish brings the Maharit. I see they didn't print the Maharit. Maybe they did. No. Okay. Okay, we'll stop here. We're gonna have I want to have a shiur exactly 11:30. So I have to leave early today.
What?
I have to leave early. I have to go somewhere to go to Bnei Brak. I still have a problem with my daughter that we're going to Mashida. I always have to be, yes, I didn't finish. I have to be there at 2:00. So Mimela, I have to leave at least a quarter 20 to 1. If I want to finish the shiur 21, I need to start exactly at 11:30. Even 11:20. Whatever. Rabbi Hanania ben Akash Shoina. Rotzak HaMishpoch Lezachis V'Lefika. Hier wordt er dus een waarde voor zijn maat, zit er wel eens een hele schade, schweer abo. Dan wordt er ook hoe ze, ja, dan hoe ze begrijpen, gewoon deze strooien bagel wat doen we. Is schweer abo, gewoon maar die maar papa is waar is zo aan, dat ze willen dat dan nee, dit moet een show brengen. Nee, dan kan ik zo misschien zo met gewoon zo aan iemand gewoon. אני סוהר על רבנון ועל תלמידיון ותלמידי תלמידיון ועל כל מה נוסקים בהוראה שעושה קדיש ועד נעים וכל עושה ועד שר יהי לא נכון שלמה רב